Good morning, and welcome to another inspiring episode of the Good Morning Minute podcast, where we start the day with passion, purpose, and a little bit of power. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and today's conversation is part of a special series that we are doing in partnership with the Empower Her Steps virtual conference, a movement rooted in helping women heal, rise, and walk boldly into the life God has designed for them. Our mission is simple yet powerful, empowering life purpose, because we believe when a woman finds clarity in her calling, everything changes for her family, her community, and the generations to come. So friends, grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and be ready to get uplifted as we dive into real stories, honest lessons, and bold steps towards purpose with our special guest. And our guest today is Joan. Joan, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Angelina. I'm so happy to be here and to share my story with your audience.
Yes, and we're excited to get to know you better. But before we do so, why don't you just take a moment to introduce yourself?
Fantastic. My name is Joan Russell. I'm a change coach and transformation strategist, founder of Intuitive North and the Leap Lounge. And I'm based here in San Diego, California, where it's a little bit warm today, which is probably not the case when this is being aired. So hence the short sleeves.
Absolutely. I get that weather changes for sure. Here in South Carolina, it's pretty warm as well. Um, Joan, before I get started, I'd like to just start with an icebreaker. And my question to you today is, are you more of a sunrise or sunset person?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that's changed throughout my life the only time I saw the sunrise was after a night of clubbing. And now I'm up at 5:30 a.m. on the regular. So I'm going to go with sunrise.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm more of a sunset, but I can be sunrise depending on what the day predicts for me. So either or, I prefer the sunsets though. Well, let's go ahead and get into the heart of our conversation. And I'm going to just start off with asking you, Joan, what was a defining moment of pain or challenge in your life, and how did it impact you?
There have been a lot because I have had a lot of change in my life, which is pretty much why I'm a change coach now, because even though you learn how to weather it, it's different every single time. So I'm going to select when my father passed away.
Okay.
And it was really a challenge because the day that I wound up having to take care of him full time. And
Mm,
on that same day, when I found out that that was going to be the case, I also lost my job. I was starting a side business, and my main clients both declared bankruptcy on the same day. So one of my friends said it was like my whole life control alt deleted, where everything just got wiped, and I wound up
mm,
having to take care of him full time.
mhm,
He wound up passing not too long after that, but it was a challenge going through not just losing your entire life, but then also losing the last parent that I had that was
mm,
left. So becoming an adult orphan, if you will. So it was like a clean slate happened, and it changed my life completely in a myriad of ways, but it took a while to get there. It took a
mm,
couple of years for the grief to handle the grief,
mhm.
to see where my values were, because they realigned so much during that time period, and then moving forward into what my next life was.
Yeah, so let's walk through that journey of healing and growth, after all of this turmoil that's happened in your life, losing a parent and just the job loss within itself. It almost feels like it's one thing after the other thing, like you're just like, what is going on? But yeah, walk us through what that was like for you when you were pursuing that healing and growth. What was that season like?
That season was everything from discovering I I had an addiction to alcohol at the same
Mm,
time.
mhm,
But I didn't realize that at the time. It was something that I was using as a coping mechanism. And it wasn't until a few years later that I wound up actually kicking it, and I've been sober for years now, pretty much, with like a one-off occasional champagne or something. And
mhm,
that's changed my life as well. But throughout that entire season, it was a season where you're driftless. I mean, you're drifting, you're completely aimless. You think you know what you want to do, and then it turns out that that's just something that's comforting to
mhm,
you.
mhm,
And you have to get really, really deep within yourself and learn who you are deep down as a person. Whereas, I had shoved that down deep inside of
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
And rediscovering it was hard and painful and challenging and also enlightening. I mean, it's all the feelings all
Mm-hmm.
at once. And having a guiding purpose is so important when you're walking through this path. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have one for a long time until I really started to discover not just who I am as a person, but more about, you know, the universe and everything that's out there and taking a look at an outer focus and,
Mm-hmm.
guiding lights, really.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate how vulnerable you're being and honest as far as like I reached out to those coping mechanisms that were comfortable, that were familiar, not really understanding the impact that it would have, as far as becoming addicted to the alcohol or whatever, but also to just the honesty and transparency that you're presenting here is very real because I know that there's people out there that are probably going, "Oh, yeah, I do that." Um, but also too, you're not the first person to sit on the show and say, I went inward. I started to heal from within so that it could project outwardly. And that's important. That's very important. And then, in that discovery, so to speak, you're starting to feel a sense of purpose. So when did that
Mhm.
start to become more relevant for you? Like, oh, okay, this is where it's headed.
It actually started around the same time with my father and realizing how challenging it is to go through the healthcare system as an elder.
Mm,
Because there is a lot of terminology and a lot of paperwork and things that it's very hard to keep in your head. So I would go along with him to, appointments and things and keep everything straight. He had a file folder, I was talking with his doctors, all of that. And that's when I started wondering, well, how could I do this as a living? And I looked into becoming a social worker. I wound up doing the same thing for
mm,
an aunt of a friend of mine as well, while she was going
mhm,
through a horrible, you know, experience with her health as well. And I realized that becoming a social worker just required so much more work with going back to school and getting all these certifications. And it's a thankless job because you're doing so much work and so much deep work, and you are not making any money. These folks are just angels, really.
yeah, yeah.
So that made me think of another way of doing it. And that's when I discovered coaching.
Hmm.
And my thought was that I wanted to become a coach helping people navigate the healthcare system. But then I realized, well, I've never really worked in the healthcare system. I don't know anything about it. But it wasn't until I was already in my coaching certification program that I realized this. So that took me a while to figure out exactly what I wanted to do with my coaching.
Hmm.
And that's how I basically turned into a change coach after a number of reiterations and realizing I'm a person who actually guides people through the fear of change
Hmm.
and helps them get clarity and get confidence so that way they can make their next leap in life, whatever that may be,
Hmm.
whether that's, getting healthier, whether that's finding a relationship, whether that's, figuring out what your next move for your career is or starting a business.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's kind of where that started was with taking my father through his healthcare issues.
Wow. And from one social worker to another, I totally understand where you're going because it is work.
Angels.
Yeah. It is. No, and so it's a helping field, and it complements coaching so much too, because you do have those skill sets as far as going into the coaching. But I'm with you as far as coaching too, because I definitely like walking alongside someone and seeing them progress into their goals and really grow and see that success that as they are defining it for themselves and those aha moments and stuff. It's beautiful. Very different than social work because it almost feels like you're shuffling around a lot of paperwork and then you're still trying to put out little fires and it doesn't ever seem like there's a good outcome from it. At least in the experiences that I've had for sure. But wow. Okay. So now you've defined this pivot for yourself. So you're pivoting and you're now a coach and you're helping others go through those processes of grief and loss and just kind of the change of life and whatever that looks like for them. And so how has that shaped the person you are today?
I think it was mutual that I shaped myself and coaching also shaped me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was still working in corporate for, gosh, probably 6 or 7 years after I wound up
Mm-hmm.
getting my certification. And I was coaching my teams in my corporate role as well as, working with my clients and things of that nature. So it wound up being something that I launched a couple of years ago and then wound up leaving my corporate job to do this full time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like I molded what I wanted to do, and it also molded me at the same time with being more curious
Mm-hmm.
about people and about life in
Mm-hmm.
general and having more positivity in it as well. Because as I was seeing other people have amazing outcomes, I was seeing amazing outcomes in myself with learning how to become more visible, for example,
Mm-hmm.
learning to actually own my power, and really, really learning how to trust not just myself, but um, the world, the universe at large,
Mm-hmm.
trusting whoever, whatever is walking alongside me while I'm doing this path.
Mm-hmm. I totally understand what you're saying here because a lot of that inner work, so there you go, you're working on yourself, but then stepping into the coaching field, you're putting into practice, right? You're teaching, and that's where a lot of growth happens. And when I was working with my coach, that's the one thing he would tell us as a class unit was go out and practice it, go out and teach it. And that's so scary too, because you're like, how can I teach it? I'm learning myself. Like,
Totally, 100%. And getting into action is the key. I mean, you can always make a decision on what you want
hmm
to do. And then a lot of times people get stuck there because it's like, okay, I want to do this thing, so I have to learn everything there is to know about it. I
hmm
want to know all of it. And that's where you get stuck. You wind up going down rabbit holes. Lord knows I went down
Yes.
so many. Um, and it winds up taking time away when what you're really supposed to do is start putting it into action and helping others.
And
And
that's,
once you get into that mindset of you're here to serve, that's when things pivot and things
oh,
change.
oh, and that, if you're listening out there, that was a nugget. But like that's so true because once you start getting into the practice of it, and you're not, I mean, it's practice so it can be permanent, not perfect. You didn't hear me say that, but it's
Totally.
permanent. um it helps open up the perspective because as you're getting into it, you're kind of, you're looking at it, you're flipping it around all different angles, you're viewing it from all different perspectives. But that's the key right there because then you become more self-aware of what you're teaching and you're implementing it in your day to day so that you can be the model and mirror what it is that you want to see in your clients and whatnot. Wow, that's like I said, that's a huge nugget you just dropped out there for anybody that's caught it.
And I'm going to go one further. I want to
Sure.
normalize having a beginner's mindset
Yes.
because, remember when you came out of school and you were looking for a
hmm
job and it's entry level positions, it's internships. You're encouraged to be a beginner. Well, why not be a beginner throughout your life as you're learning and growing and having that mindset of, I want to learn more. I'm a lifelong learner. So
hmm
you have to start at the beginning.
hmm
It's called the
And
beginning for a reason.
absolutely, absolutely. And, because, we get all our accolades and we get all the, our experiences and stuff like that. It feeds into the ego. So it really is allowing yourself to let your ego aside and just allow
Mm.
yourself to step into a humble process of new beginnings and stay inquisitive, stay, in that mindset of, like you said, the learning mindset and just wanting to know and grow. Um, I say that's where the fountain of youth lies, but because you're constantly, looking and seeking and trying to understand. But what happens when you're working with a person that is maybe stuck in the in between, that state of mind of, I'm in this rough place and I don't know where to go next.
I love this question because it's another thing I want to normalize, and that's being in the void, which is basically what I call it, is the void,
Mhm.
where you feel like you're completely stuck, nothing is happening, But what you don't realize is deep down things are happening because as you're trying to think your way through and feel your way through this period of time where you're drifting, you're actually learning about yourself in that time
Mm,
period and what you want to do and what your values are and things like that. Even if you don't realize it or verbalize it in that way, you're kind of in this germination period. I like to think of it as, the butterfly with the cocoon and your goo at that
mhm,
point in time. So what I like to do with working with clients is things like, journaling, which is huge because that
mhm,
helps you with working through your inner mindset at the same time. Mindset work is so important as well because you're not going to be stuck here forever. This is a
mhm,
phase. It's
mhm,
one of my friends just the other day said, it's a storm that I need to pass through.
mhm,
It's not going to be permanent. And once you start realizing that and working through the direction that you want to go in life, that's where the magic happens. Because once you start realizing that general direction, you don't have to have an absolute destination, but
mhm,
just, I want to go in this direction for my life. This is something that I want to do. And you start thinking about it, planning for it, visualizing it, making a decision to go for it. That's
mhm,
where the magic happens.
mhm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Definitely just, and you're also highlighting just the taking the baby steps towards this goal. And it clears up and it starts defining itself as you step into those systems and processes. But as you're taking those steps of courage and, stepping out of those comfort zones and things like that, like it starts to become a clearer vision for yourself, and you really can start understanding, okay, this is where it's headed for me. Um, Joan, my next question to you is, what does living with purpose look like for you now?
With purpose for me is much more intentional than it was before, honestly. Living with purpose means to me, my purpose in life is to really help people facilitate what their next steps are in life, and help them to have no regrets in life, help them to face their fears and to do it anyway.
Mhm,
Um, and at the same time, it's also intentional with me, with taking care of myself and my habits. And also when it comes to relationships. One of the things I did after one of my other changes where I almost died, which is a whole nother story, was to really start getting involved with the community I was living in. And now I have a meetup group of people that is, over 2,600 people. And
mhm,
we get together all the time. And it's just so much fun to go out and do things and to rediscover the world when perhaps you've lived inwards for a while when you're in that void period. So
mhm,
becoming a more overall well-rounded person has really made it so that I look forward to what's happening each and every day because you never know. Miracles happen every day,
mhm,
and you never know what's going to happen if you get open to it and you actually decide to live a full life.
mhm. And that's such wisdom that you're just dropping down, because being present is so overlooked, especially when you're in a survival mindset, or you're just kind of driven one task after the other task. You lose such focus on the whole meaning of life, from my perspective, because you're disengaged. You're not intentional in the moment. And in all honesty, for those that are listening out there, um, tomorrow really never does come. So you can sit there and go, "Oh, I'll do this tomorrow." No, no, no. Do it today, because today
Mhm.
is what matters. Um, which is kind of prompting me into my next question for you, Joan. One of legacy and impact, and one that I ask all my guests as we start closing out our conversation. And that is, if today were your last day, what would you want to be remembered for?
I would want to be remembered for having made a difference in people's lives.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Helping them to feel better about themselves and better about the world and their impact that they have on the world as well. I'm really, really proud of everything I've accomplished in this life, and I try and live a life without regrets, which, as we all know, is easier said than done. You really
Mhm.
have to put yourself out there in order to do the things that you want to do. And I really want people to realize that it's never, ever too late to become the person that you've always wanted to be.
Ooh, that is true. That is some real truth right there, friends. Age is not but a number, and it really isn't a factor in anything. You can begin where you're at for sure. Um, so, Joan, as we get ready to kind of close our conversation, my last question to you is if you could leave maybe a bit of truth or maybe a word of encouragement to someone out there listening who's still trying to figure out what their life purpose is, what would it be?
Wow, that's a really, really great question. I always want people to look towards what they enjoy doing.
Mhm.
Even when you were a kid, what did you love? What makes you feel like you're alive?
Mhm.
What, when you are doing it, you lose track of time?
Mhm.
Um, and that's called flow when that happens. And if you're looking towards what your life purpose is, look towards the things that you enjoy
Mhm.
and where you're called to be. Tap into your intuition.
Mhm.
Don't think about the things that you have been conditioned, and what other people are doing. Look deep
Mhm.
inside yourself because sometimes inspiration comes from unexpected places.
Mm. Such good words there. Well, Joan, let's say somebody's out there listening and they are like, yes, I want to work with Joan. She's a coach and I need a coach. How can they get in contact with you?
You can get in contact with me through my website at intuitivenorth.com. Also, I am on Instagram and dropping nuggets all the time, along with episodes of my podcast talking about the Leap Lounge, and also I have one-on-one coaching. So that Instagram is at the Joan Russell. And then today, for your listeners, what I'd love to do is offer a free clarity session. This is an hour-long session with me, which is remarkable because we'll talk through what perhaps your interests are, your values, and what goals you might have in life. And we'll put together within that hour a quick overview of where you might want to go next.
Hmm.
So that's all up to you. Hit me up, just DM me at the Joan Russell on Instagram, or I will be sending over Angelina a link so that way you can sign up.
Absolutely. And we'll post it with this interview. All right, Joan, I want to say thank you so much for your sharing your heart, your story, and your light with us today. Conversations like this remind us that purpose isn't about perfection. It's about showing up and growing through the things that we go through and understanding that every step matters. Here at the Good Morning Minute and through the Empower Her Steps movement, we believe every woman has a calling worth discovering and a voice worth using. Wherever you are today, friend, remember your purpose does matter and you're not walking alone. So until next time, friends, keep rising, keep trusting, and keep walking boldly into the life God has designed for you. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.